welcome to the Red Half of Sheffield preview show where I think we've only got 6 more defeats left to preview. I am joined today by Adam from the No Nay Never Burnley fan page to preview this. I don't even know how to call it. What the hell do we call it? Just a bottom of the table clash. You can't even call it a relegation 6-pointer.
Battle for 19th.
Yeah. A battle for 19th is what we'll call it. Adam, how are you doing on a Sunday?
Other than football, very well, thank you. We've just had a nice chat offline about the Masters and that culminating this evening. I don't know when this show goes out, but recording on Sunday night. But I think that'd be a lot more positive chat than either of us would be talking about football. But I think this weekend, at least, we've both probably got a better chance of winning a game than we normally do.
Yeah. And God, I can't think. Well, actually, I take that back. I said we had a pretty good shot to beat Chelsea. And, based on Burnley played Chelsea the week before, and I was like, well, shit, Burnley were down to 10 men and still managed to draw Chelsea. Hell, we can't be that much worse than Burnley, and hell, we got to draw with them too. I guess sum up the season, and in my head, I'll compartmentalize how bad yours sounds to as bad as ours has been.
Yeah, going back to this time last year, I think obviously we were both by far the best teams in the Championship. Had very different, or perceived to be very different summers from our perspective anyway. Burnley fans were really, really excited with the incomings last summer. Spent over £100 million, which is unheard of from a Burnley's point of view. Always been really, really tight in the transfer market before with Sean Dyche bringing in experienced players in 4-4-2, old school brand of football that worked for us for so long, but became outdated, and the lack of investment caught up with us before the start of last season when we did get relegated the year before. But company coming in, breath of fresh air, exactly what this club needed, and hit the ground running. Obviously, last year, brilliant. Continue to invest in the summer, and you're thinking we're building something really, really special here. And yeah, the high expectations of they whimpered quite early on, to be honest, because we still tried to play all-out attack for the first couple of months and just got picked off by better opposition, and then got into a bit of a rut, couldn't get out of it, and we haven't really adapted too much. And people say about one of the problems is company won't change from his philosophy, and I think that has cost us ultimately. But we've not really seen any of it either. We try and play out for the back, and you say high risk, high reward, and there's no reward. We just get punished over and over and over again. And not only are teams better at football than us, we get bullied by the big six, which would have never been the case in our previous seasons in the Premier League. That's what always gave us a fighting chance, where you knew if you got a free kick in the opposition half or a corner, a set piece, you stood a chance and you knew you'd be solid at the back. Whereas now, anytime we concede a set piece, we're thinking we're going to concede a goal, and we're getting tore apart. It's not been much fun, to be honest. But I think from like maybe a bit dissimilar from the Blades, that you guys, from a Burnley perspective, we thought, well, selling the best players, not really reinvesting too heavily, that you were doomed from the outset, maybe, and that might be a bit unfair. But it has worked out like that. But we've been just as bad, and it's been. I think a lot of fans feel very disconnected from the club right now, because even the overhaul of players again, in the end, we don't have any connection with them when they're playing poorly. If it was the same group that had come up, I think we'd find it a lot easier to watch it and know that at least they've earned the place. But at the moment, you're just left scratching your head at a lot of the decisions this season, and ultimately we've just not been good enough Sorry, I've been on a bit of a rant there.
No, it's all good. One question I have: do you think that Burnley spent reckless this summer, bringing in like the likes of James Trafford, who had never kicked a ball or saved a ball higher than League One, and then match day one he's between the sticks, and I think he's been through behind or in between the sticks for a majority of the season. And then they put Muric in 5 or so games ago.
Yeah.
Do you think, in a sense, Burnley spent Kyle kind of wildly and not, as we talked off air before recording, Luton spent with sort of like a plan? They didn't spend much, but they spent with a plan, and you could kind of see where they're trying to go.
Yeah, I think we had such a successful summer transfer window entering the Championship with the likes of Ian Matson coming on loan, Anas Saruri and Manuel Benson, who we hadn't heard of before that, having such good seasons. There were Jordan Bayer coming on loan and then making permanent, Teller on loan. There were so many success stories from the previous season that I think our board as well just trust company without much question. So the idea, I think they see themselves as like being able to build something like Brighton and Brentford. I've made probably more Brighton, where they've got that conveyor belt of bringing players in, company will make them better, we'll be able to sell them for a profit.
Mm-hmm.
And you look at the squad that we brought in the year before, the market value was probably a lot higher than when we bought them. And I don't know whether they saw last summer as bringing in young players again and trying to do the same again, but on a bigger scale. But we've fallen flat on our face with it. And Trafford's a prime example. Like you say, I don't think he'd had a really good Euros under 21s last summer. Really, the hype was there. I've never seen him play before. But I think it was evident quite early to a lot of the fans that he wasn't up to it at this moment in time. He may go on to be a very, very good goalkeeper, but when we'd had the Championship goalkeeper of the season there from the year before, why spend 19 million or 15, 19 million on an unproven talent like that, and then not be willing to change it when it's clearly costing us every single week? And it might seem a bit silly that I'm saying that today after Muric's absolute howler yesterday. I don't know if you've seen that one, but as a team in the 4 or 5 games since he's come back in, we just look so much more confident, and it allows us to actually have a chance of getting out from the back because of his distribution. He's dropped a couple of shockers, you can't defend that, but in my opinion, I think we're still better off with him in between the sticks than Trafford. And there's other examples. I wish it were Jacob Ramsey. Aaron Ramsey for 12 million. Signed Trésor from Belgium for 18 million, and he's barely featured. And Benson and Zaruri, I mentioned before, who were so good last year. Benson's on the bench and Zaruri's out on loan at Hull. And you're just thinking the players that are in the team aren't doing great. Why haven't we given the guys who got us here the chance to prove themselves? So yeah, very, very frustrating. I think it is rash because of how poorly it's gone. Because none of our signings really, maybe other than Koleosha, who's been injured for a long time, are probably still worth what we've paid for them now a year on. And it's all a bit of a mess, and it's hard not to be worried about the financial situation when our owners don't really have much money behind them themselves. It's all like leverage buyout, and we've like got loans against the assets of the club, and it's all a bit scary. I'm sure it'll be fine if we keep yo-yoing and maybe steady off in the Premier League, but all it takes is 1 or 2 seasons in the Championship, and you're starting to get very worried then. And you can't, even though we've been very lucky that when we've been in the Championship the last 3 times, we've managed to get out of it. That's not going to last forever. It's not sustainable. So I think our best signing is Berge, to be honest, from last summer.
Really, I'll touch on them on him. But that is wow.
think it's naive and probably a bit arrogant that they thought they were going to be able to do what they were going to do. And we, as fans, we probably got sucked into it as well last summer. But watching the results on the pitch, it's it's just a shambles.
And that's what makes it worrying. Is you say, this thing's teetering on the knife's edge right now, and it goes one way. God forbid, you go down with us next year and a couple of big injuries happen. You guys end up finishing 13th or 15th down by us next year. Man, it could all go tits up. But don't worry, as they keep preaching over here in America, J.J. Watt will save everyone. J.J. Watt and his hundreds of millions of dollars will save Burnley Football Club, and everything will be right in their world. You just alluded to, as I called him, Sandy Barge. How is Sanderberg getting on at Burnley? I did see his own goal yesterday, or Murich's own goal, whoever you want to call it. How is the Norwegian geezer, as we used to refer to him, getting on at Burnley?
I think, like I said, I think he's been our, if not one of, probably the best player this season for us. I think when we signed him, I was really excited, to be honest, from the small parts that I had seen of him at Sheffield United. I thought, and I always could not believe that you'd managed to keep hold of him in the Championship for 2 seasons. But I suppose that maybe says something that no one bigger has come in for him over time. But when he's on it, he's I'd say unplayable. He's probably not got. He gets to the edge of the box and then plays a pass, and you want him to fire one at the bottom of the crowd. He probably don't get the goals and assists he maybe should do. Yeah. But in terms of carrying the ball up the pitch and just showing quality on the ball, it is the best we've got. And I don't think you'd find many Burnley fans faulting what he's given this season. He threw in a couple of dodgy ones when we got battered against Arsenal and Palace earlier this month, 5-0 and 3-0. But other than that, he's been really good, and he's built up a decent partnership with Cullen these last few games in the centre of the park. I think Cullen gives him a bit more protection than maybe Brownhill did earlier in the season when they were playing as a 2. But yeah, overall, really positive. And if we can keep hold of him, I expect him to be a really big player for us next year in more likely than not the Championship.
Has he gone missing for anywhere from 60 minutes to 7 games in a row like he did for us in spells last year? I mean, he was a good player for us. In our blip we had last year where we were up by 13 points over Middlesbrough, and then we started to wobble and you guys got further away and the chasing pack started catching us. I was calling for him to be benched because he was absolutely pathetic in midfield. But then with about 8 games left, he started playing out of his mind. And I'm like, where the hell has this been for the last 10 games prior? But yeah, he was a very good player for us. And man, I don't know what the hell they were thinking getting rid of him. But it sounds like he's kept up his decent form and has played well. And yeah, I'm curious to see, because as you said, him in the Championship, it almost felt like he was a cheat code because he was. I'll never forget the first game back in the Championship. We played Swansea away, and those midfielders for Swansea tried to tackle him, get him on the ground, and he would just shred them off and just shed and just run. He looked like, I'd call him the Norwegian horse because he would just maraud through midfield, and like you could almost see like his feet like droop, 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 like a big Norwegian horse would be. And oh man, he just killed it in that league. And if you, like you said, if you guys are able to hold on to him, trust me, I mean that midfield's going to be almost like a brick wall. Nobody will be able to get through that thing because he'll just take him down. And then when he gets possession, good luck getting him on the ground.
He can't head the ball though.
No, God, no.
Times they call
left, right, left, right,
all over the place. But not much not many bad words to say about him at all. I saw a few of the negative comments from Sheffield United fans when he were moving on, but I think, like you said, if it sounded like maybe the right time for the club and the player maybe to part ways, to give him a fresh start. And I think, to be honest, he probably thought coming to us that we'd maybe do a lot better than we have done, and it might be his chance to shine a bit more in the Premier League, but it obviously hasn't really worked out that way, and he's going to be in that situation again this summer that he found himself in 3 years ago now when you came down.
Yeah, for sure. Back to the battle for 19th. How do you see this one going? What's the final score? Tell me how you think this is going to go. Give me the final score, and what is it going to be? 7-8-0? You going to tie Newcastle on us?
No, I don't. I can't see that happening. I'm still got a few scars from our last visit to Bramall Lane last year.
Oh yeah, that was it. Although the result didn't go in Burnley's favor, I will say that was probably one of the funnest games. Just like as a neutral, if I was sitting down to watch that game at Bramall Lane last year was absolutely phenomenal. That's your advert for the championship type game there. And I know, yeah, you guys were on the losing end of it, but I just thought it was an exhilarating game from start to finish.
Yeah, I thought you were brilliant that day. You were just all over us, such high intensity, and just overpowered us in every area. I think obviously Benson scored twice, I think, and it were two pretty much breakaway goals and like nice finishers getting in behind you. But anytime you got the ball near the box, it was as much as I hated the day, you couldn't help but admire the performance from Sheffield United that afternoon. It were I thought you were unbelievable. And Ollie McBurney that day, absolutely unplayable. But exactly. a lot of the forward players that day were very good. And I think it were I say forward players. I think Robinson and Ahmed, whatever. They've got two of the goals, and it was just you were magnificent, and it took us by surprise, I think. But I think one of the positives from that was we seemed to toughen up a bit after that, and we learned a lot from that game. And I think if that wouldn't have happened, we might not have been as strong in the second half of the season. I think that's what gave us more hope at the start of this season, that we'd managed to adapt and change the year before. And we've just not managed to do that this year. But I think, like you said before, the level just doesn't allow you to. Even when you try to make those changes, you still just get punished for the smallest mistakes at the level we're at now. But so this weekend, I've gone off on one again. But I think it's a tough one because when I've watched you recently, obviously at home, you have put up more of a battle, and you've got Brereton Diaz, who obviously play for Rovers, so I'm sure he'll get a nice reception from our fans. You've got threats, and we are so vulnerable defensively. I can't see us keeping a clean sheet in any game, and I definitely can't see us keeping a clean sheet this weekend. So I see it being a 2-1 either way, or a 2-2. Because I've got to be, I feel like I've got to be positive. I'll say 2-1 to Burnley, but something goals in the game and a one goal swing either way is what I'm expecting.
I hope it's a 5-3. Now, we're not going to win. I think it's the reverse. I think Burnley went 5-3, but that's what I'm going to go, because as I said, that game was so fun, and I hope it's an open game, because we don't have. I guess Burnley have more to play for than Sheffield United. I get that, but if we're talking about that much more compared to what we have to play for, so yeah, Burnley need the 3 points if they're going to have a so-called relegation fight and try to stay up. But I want a game that's that brings me back to what we're going to see in probably 6 months' time when we're back in the championship and we're both playing. That open style, free flowing. Don't get penalized if you make one mistake, and when you make one mistake, it doesn't turn into 5 goals. I want goals, and I want just both teams to feel like they can just go at it with no consequences. Hey, there's nothing to lose in this game.
There isn't really, is there?
No, there's not. I mean, they're going to build it up as, if Burnley grab all 3 points for Sheffield United, they're right on Luton's heels and they could stay up. You seem to be kind of like me, where you're almost, nailed on to be relegated. I don't know where, obviously with the points deductions and everything, until the final whistle on the final day blows, we won't know. But it's just like, okay, let's go, and we have nothing to lose. Let's play like we have nothing to lose. Let's just go out there and try and get a result. And I'd take a 3-3. I don't know, goals in it, something that screams this is a championship game and both of these teams belong in it. But yeah, hopefully it's an entertaining game, and it's not one that's just like, oh, I put some paint on the wall, I'm going to watch it dry for 90 minutes now, and this is 0-0, and we're just like, what the hell did we just watch?
I think from our point of view, we had quite a few of those open games earlier on in the season, and we just ended up on the wrong side of them all. So I think this last month we've had a few more tight games. So I don't know whether you'll get what you want. I think we have dropped off slightly in terms of the way that we're trying to attack teams, and results wise, it's been more positive. I think we've only lost one of the last 5, which is the best run by a mile we've been on all season.
Yeah.
Obviously, we've only won one of the last 5, but we'll stay away from that. But yeah, we have been a bit more defensively sound. Teams cause us problems. We're still look vulnerable, but it's not all out attack, which you felt like it was at some points in the season. So I don't know whether you'll get what you want there, but
yeah.
I think we've actually quite enjoyed not going into the games thinking we're just going to get absolutely annihilated and we might put up a bit of a fight. And we have actually shown a bit more fight. I think one of the criticisms earlier in the season was like you'd see the players just with like get up and go and do anything about getting back into games. It was just heads down, slumping about, and it's not what you want to see as a fan. And we have got that back, but it's too little, too late. And the changes have come too little, too late. So we've just kind of got to accept that now. But this weekend for both teams should be a chance to win a game of football. So that's at least I'll be going into the game in a more positive mindset, thinking that I might not be going into work on Monday embarrassed.
Yeah, right.
Most weeks this season.
No kidding. You and me the same. Before we get out of here, I ask everybody, every opposing view that comes on here, the same exact question. So, match day, what is your go-to beverage? It doesn't have to be alcohol related. It can be alcohol. I'm drinking alcohol as we're recording this now. That's what makes the quality of these videos so good, is my ability to drink alcohol during these things. But if you have to choose, what's your go-to match day beverage?
It's got to be the traditional Burnley Benny and Hot, which is Benedictine and hot water. Oh. So it's a bit of a tradition brought over after the Second World War. The military people from Burnley who were in the military got a taste of Benedictine when they were in Europe. I think it was in the south of France. Brought tons of it back. And since then, I think there's more Benedictine drank in Burnley than any other town across Europe. It's like a liqueur. I don't know if you're familiar with it at all.
No, I've never heard of it.
But yeah, me and my father-in-law and my dad go to the games together, and we'll always have a Benny and Hot on match day. But yeah, it's sold in the ground. It's sold everywhere around the ground. Definitely warms you up for a cold winter's game on Turf Moor. So probably a bit of a different one than you used to, but go and look it up.
Yeah, oh, definitely. And when I get over it next time, I will definitely have to stop over in Turf Moor and Get me
And JJ Watt has been introduced to it, and I think he's put a couple of videos online about it as well. So if you want an American's take on it, JJ knows all about the Benedictine and hot water now.
Well, I'm gonna have to check that out. Yeah, for sure, for sure. Before we get out of here, Adam, drop the fan page and all the social medias where we can follow you and listen to you.
Yeah, so I'm on, like you said before, I'm on the No Nay Never podcast. We've been going around 10, 15 years, I think. I'm pretty new to the panel, but you can find us on Twitter at No Nay Never, on Facebook, No Nay Never podcast. And we're doing quizzes, do a preview show and an analysis show every week, and just there to interact with all the Burnley fans and opposition fans in the UK and around the world. So if you've got anything interesting to tell us, then get in touch.
Will do. All right, that should do it for this episode of the Red Half of Sheffield preview show. If you haven't done so, follow myself, cjarvis_13 on X or Twitter, whatever the hell it's called now. Red Half of Sheffield on Twitter /X or whatever. On YouTube, Red Half of Sheffield. Just type that up. You find all these previews. Subscribe, like, do all that stuff. And until I think Man United and I preview another inevitable defeat, I will leave you with this. Up the